nearly 2 decades, Al Roker has been America's perennial weatherman. We have entrusted him with our daily forecasts and turned to him to report live from the scene of some of history's worst national disasters. The Today Show co-anchor is also the host of Wake Up with Al on the Weather Channel, and he's executive producer of that network's hit series, Coast Guard Alaska. The new season premieres February 23rd. We'll talk about that in a while. We're here in frigid in New York. It's cool. By the way, I was meant to ask you, are you a meteorologist?
I am not a degreed meteorologist. I do not have a degree.
How did you become a weather?
You know what? I went to the State University of New York at Oswego, and I'm in school. I have no intentions of being on TV. My department chairman, the late great Dr. Lou O'Donnell, after my first TV performance class goes, "Roker, you've got the perfect face for radio." So I literally had no plans of being on TV. And he put me up for a job doing weekend weather at the CBS station in Syracuse, about 35 miles away. And I had taken a meteorology course just for a science requirement. I mean, I literally had no plans to use it, whatever, done. And I got the job. But I thought, I'll just do this until I can get a real gig, And at the end of my junior year, I got the weekday job. At the end of my senior year, I graduate. 6 months later, I get a job in Washington, D.C. at Channel 5, then Metro Media, Channel 5.
Yeah, Metro Media.
And that's where I met Willard Scott, who changed my life. He was at WRC, Channel 4.
He brought you, he came to New York?
He came to New York, he mentored me. I mean, before you knew what the word mentor was, he took me under his wing.
Great guy.
Everything I learned about this business.
Is he still with us?
He's still with us. He's retired. He still does. He does the 100-year-old birthdays. The Smucker's jar. And he's semi-retired, living in Connecticut and having a great time.
When you become a weatherman, do you become fascinated with it?
Yeah.
I've interviewed weathermen. That's the first thing they look out the window every day. And
even now, even more so with the internet and your phone and the apps and the whole, it's funny, even though people can get their weather, they don't really need a weatherman per se. It's still part of our culture. You look at the Weather Channel, and our show, Wake Up with Al, in the morning from 5 to 7, it beats like CNN and CNBC and MSNBC. People
love the weather.
They're fascinated by it. They're fascinated.
It's the number one thing for radio listeners.
One of my favorite stories is the one you tell about Woody Allen, and he opens up the window.
Oh, yeah. Woody Allen tells a story about he checked into a New York hotel, and he was a little cold, and he opened the window, and he went in to take a shower. When he came in, the window was open, and he came from the bathroom, and he created a front, and it snowed on him in the hotel room.
I love that story. That's the first time I met you. You told me that story.
So what's going on here?
Well, we've got we got us a real winter going. I mean, although this is nothing compared to Boston and New England. I mean, we've been in a pattern now where 5 weeks in a row there's been a storm that comes up and forms and then reforms off the coast, the mid-Atlantic New England coast, and dumps a ton of snow. And so Boston, as of this point, is in its number 2 snowiest winter.
Is this all part of climate change?
I think it is. Look, you can't point to any one event and say this is climate change, but what climate change opens the door for and allows for are more extreme swings of weather. So while you've got this ongoing drought out in California,
I live there.
There's been almost no snowpack. No snowfall in the Sierra.
I don't remember when it rained.
Yeah, and it barely has rained. Yet you've got monumental forest fires, wildfires going on. Here in the East, you've got brutal cold. Yet globally, January was the warmest month on record. So there's all these swings that are happening. And climate change makes that more possible. Doesn't mean that that's exactly what it is that's causing this, but it makes it all possible.
And is there a reason for it all?
Well, you've got greenhouse gases building up. You've got melt at the polar ice caps. It's all part of everything's connected. And so when you start changing that balance, nature doesn't like an imbalance. So, more extremes happen, and that's going to continue.
Dr. David Robinson, a climatologist at Rutgers, said this: simple physical laws would tell you that a warmer atmosphere can hold more moisture, so it's related to warmer temperature and more abundant moisture available in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
This is global warming, even though it's freezing.
Right. Well, and that's why I don't like the phrase global warming. I like climate change because that was the greatest disservice, was calling it, global warming. It should have been climate change.
What about, do forecasters, New York City overreacted, right? There was a feared thing coming and they...
I listen, to me...
What should we do? I favor overreacting.
I'm one of those, I would rather be safe. It's the old, what your grandmother used to say, better safe than sorry. Because you look at what happened in Boston. They didn't do what they needed to, or they tried to, and they got dumped on, and it crippled the city. So listen, a 50 miles difference of that storm, and New York City would have been in the same boat as Boston. So, I think the mayor did the right thing. And listen, I was one of those people that went after him last year when we were having a horrible winter and not reacting. So I'm not going to then say to him, hey, you know what, you overreacted.
You broke a record for the longest weather report?
Yeah, we did the Guinness. We became known as Roker-thon. And this woman...
How long was it?
34 hours of nonstop weather. I got 10 minutes every hour. 5 minutes, I'm sorry, 5 minutes for every hour I stayed on. And for a while, I did about 8 hours in a row, so I was actually able to bank a fair amount of time.
Does a weatherman ever say the next day why he was wrong?
Absolutely.
You do? Because most don't.
I do. Look, you blew it. We're not infallible. It is an inexact science in a sense, in that you're giving your best guesstimate of what's going to happen. Some days you get the bear, some days the bear gets you.
When we come back, we're going to talk about Coast Guard Alaska with the great Al Roker. Don't go away. We're back with Al Roker. Before we get to Coast Guard Alaska, how's the feeling at NBC about Brian?
Look, listen,
I think you were on his last show.
I was. I was doing the weather. We were talking about the weather. Look, the fact is, he's a great news guy. He's a friend. We all want to see what happens. NBC News is doing an internal investigation. Until then, we just wait and see.
Have you talked to him?
Oh, he and I've emailed back and forth a little bit. But listen, I know
I
it's
like
a tough
him
time.
a lot. How's he holding up?
Yeah, I think as well as can be expected under something like this. But he's a great guy, and we're hoping for the best.
How about the stories about Katrina?
I don't know. Listen, I wasn't there, Larry. I actually, I was laid up. I was getting back surgery that day. I was going to go, and I had a disc bulge pressing against my sciatic nerve, and I was just about to get on a plane, and my wife said, "No, you are not going." And then that next morning, I couldn't move. I was in emergency surgery, and was watching along with the rest of the country in horror. God.
One other thing about the Brian thing: how has it upset the whole department at NBC?
Well, look, I don't know.
Mood bad.
Look, I think we all want closure, and we want the best for everybody involved, and then we So, but in the meantime, Lester's doing a terrific job.
He's a great guy.
He is a terrific guy. I've known Lester for a long time. I mean, and listen, it's funny. I always remember one of my favorite movies was The Fugitive. And Lester's in The Fugitive. He's one of the reporters toward the end, and he's got the full mustache going, the Lester Holt mustache. And I remember when he used to anchor local news here in New York at WCBS.
What's Coast Guard Alaska?
Coast Guard Alaska, this is our 4th season. Men and women of the Coast Guard every day put their lives on the line. Well, in Kodiak, Alaska, it is one of the most inhospitable environments in the world. If you ever watched that show, Deadliest Catch, sure. when those guys get in trouble, these are the Coast Guard men and women who save them. And it's amazing to see what these men and women do. The weather they fly in, hurricane force winds. Their rescue swimmers are jumping into 30-foot seas, swimming in to get people off of ships. Then they're lowering the hoist. it literally is life and death. And
What about the people filming them?
you know, our crews, we've got these great crews that, you know, that strap in and embed with the Coast Guard. I mean, they're honorary coasties in a sense. But it is, you know, it's not this fake kind of, oh, can you do that again? There's no doing that again. It happens, and it's amazing what they
How
do.
did the idea to come about to do a show?
You know what? I literally was like most of America, wasting time on the internet. You know, there was a Yahoo thing that said 10 greatest Coast Guard rescues, and it was all shot from those hoist cams. And I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, just watching the hoist go down, the guy come up, there's no sound with it. I thought, I bet you there are great stories about this. So I made a phone call, and a year later, we're in Alaska shooting this series. And it's gone, now its fourth season.
That's great. It's the least talked about service.
Yeah,
right?
I couldn't agree with you more. It is so underrated and underappreciated.
Why?
You know what? Because
They don't fight in wars.
you know, and yet they're so involved. I mean, they're drug interdiction, border patrol, search and rescue. I mean, they've got about 14 different missions that they are tasked with. And it's really amazing what they do. They're the smallest group of the armed forces. And yet they do amazing work every day.
They fly too?
They do. Oh, choppers, fixed wing aircraft. I mean, plus the different kind of crafts. They have, I mean, and there's so many different environments along our coasts when you think about it. I mean, from the Pacific Northwest, we did a season in the Pacific Northwest, Cape Disappointment, where they have these fast boats that are built to roll over because the surf is so bad. You know, here in the Northeast, look, during Hurricane Superstorm Sandy, Coast Guard rescued the crew off the HMS Bounty. You know, we did a special on it. I mean, the Bounty was out in the water during Sandy and ended up sinking, but they rescued all but 2 people on that boat.
I know the Coast Guard Academy is in Connecticut.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. You know.
Must be tough training.
It is. You know, you've got to be able to fly a plane. You've got to be able to chopper pilot. You've got to be if you're a rescue swimmer. You know, if you think of Olympic swimmers are tough and have endurance. These rescue swimmers have to be able to swim in 30-foot seas and rescue and drag people back. You know, people who are dead weight. And get them into baskets in the most horrible conditions. It's really amazing.
Many women too?
There are more and more women joining up, and in fact, on the Coast Guard Alaska, we've focused on a number of them, and it really is. You're absolutely right. One of the most underrated.
How did you go from NBC to the Weather Channel?
You know, well, NBC is one of 3 owners of the Weather Channel.
Who are the other 2?
2 investment firms, Bain and BlackRock. And it was just kind of a natural fit. They said, hey, would you want to be on the Weather Channel? I said, well, I'm not going to extend my day, but I'm already up in the morning. I mean, I just don't have my pants on. So I put my pants on a little earlier, most days. And I do Wake Up with Al with Stephanie Abrams from 5 to 7 in the morning. I leave a little earlier, and like at 6:50, and then head across the street and do the Today Show.
Is it across the street?
Yeah, literally. Our Wake Up with Al studios in 30 Rock, and then take the elevator down 6 floors, across the street, Studio 1A, and do the Today Show.
Will it tell you about the time he got stuck in the elevator?
Yes, yes.
Great story. We'll be right back with Al Roker. Coast Guard Alaska premieres again its 4th season, February 23rd. We'll be right back. We're back with Al Gore.
You know, that happened one time. We had been covering a hurricane, and we were driving back to Washington, D.C., because we couldn't get a flight. And we stopped in a Pump and Munch to get, you know, some gas and some snacks. And one of the women behind the cash register goes, "Oh my God, it's Al Gore!" No, it's not.
I got stopped on the street and someone called me Letterman. Nuts. It's Al Roker, Coast Guard Alaska. The new season premieres February 23rd. You co-hosted the Saturday Night Live 40th anniversary red carpet, right?
Yeah, with Matt Savannah and Carson Daly.
Was that fun?
It was a blast. You know, 'cause listen, I do the Golden Globes red carpet, the Oscar red carpet, and I have a great time doing it. But this was something special because not only did you have all the stars, past and present, of Saturday Night Live and the hosts, but you had this incredible mix, this nexus of sports stars like Derek Jeter and Peyton Manning, Michael Jordan. You had you had Mayor Dinkins. You had Sarah Palin talking to Al Sharpton. I mean, it was like
bizarre,
mind blown. I mean, it was amazing to see.
Did Eddie Murphy give you a rough time?
He didn't give me a rough time.
What happened?
I don't know what happened. I think he was somewhat aloof. I'll say that. And listen, I've interviewed him before, and he's always been very, very lovely. We've had a great time. And maybe, who knows? Maybe it was nerves. I mean, he said he wasn't nervous, but I can't imagine he wasn't.
I heard he got a standing ovation, but he wasn't funny, and he was kind of removed.
He was. I don't know what it was. Look, I'm not inside his head, but it may have been he was overwhelmed. I have a sense that my feeling is that I think maybe the enormity of it and being back there on that
because he was a
stage,
kid when that struck.
He was 19 years old. He was 19. I mean, think about it. He filmed 48 hours and Trading Places while he was doing Saturday Night Live. Yeah. I mean, it's mind-boggling when you think about it.
We play a little game of If You Only Knew, all right? I just throw. You remember the first girl you kissed?
Yes.
What was her name?
Kim Burrell.
Kim Burrell. Yes. How old were you?
I was in high school.
High school?
Yes.
They do it now in kindergarten.
I was a slow learner.
What city?
St. Albans, Queens.
Oh, you're local?
Yeah, local.
What's your favorite season?
Fall.
Favorite type of weather?
Light snowfall.
You like snow?
I do.
If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Flying.
I'd be invisible.
Ooh. But then we wouldn't see you on TV.
Something we'd find on your DVR.
Mad Men.
The craziest thing to happen when talking to people on the street outside the Today Show.
A gay couple kissed.
And you didn't see that
coming?
Coming?
Didn't see it coming. Didn't see it coming. It was right after they had the kiss. Actually, it was funny. There's a funny story about this. This couple, the guy had a sign that said, "Jill, will you marry me?" I thought, oh, this is great. I'm going to go up to him. And our executive producer at the time was Jeff Zucker. He said, "Don't do it. I can see what you don't do it." He's saying it in my ear. So I go, "Hey, so you want to marry Jill?" He goes, "I love Jill, but I love Jeff more." And with that, turns to the guy next to him and gives him a big open mouth kiss. I said, "And they won't show you that on Will and Grace." And here's what's happening in your neck of the woods. And sure enough, then they wrote that into a Will and Grace. So I played myself on Will and Grace.
Did Jeff Zucker say he was right?
Yeah. Every time I see him.
Pet peeve.
People who don't say thank you when you hold the door open for them.
Guilty pleasure.
Watching reruns of the A-Team.
Really?
Yeah.
I like Seinfeld.
Yeah, I love it.
Something we don't know about Matt Lauer.
He has a lovely singing voice.
Really?
No.
Secret talent.
I'm a really good cook.
Best thing about New York.
The subway. You can go anywhere you want. You can stay on it for as long as you want.
Worst thing about New York.
The subway.
Are 10-day forecasts accurate?
Not for the whole 10 days. Usually.
Is it possible to see that far ahead?
Depending on where you are, yeah. Yeah, I mean, some patterns, yeah.
If you weren't doing what you were doing, what would you be doing?
I would be an animator. I would have...
Drawing?
Drawing, cartooning, yeah.
Where does weather... This is my own, this is not a list.
Okay.
Where does weather start?
It's with wind. It's with the...
Where, though? Where, in Africa? Where does... Weather has to be...
At the poles. And then from there, everything spreads out.
What's the best weather country? Is it Guatemala? Eternal spring?
Well, it depends on what you consider the best weather country. I think America, I think the United States has some of the most varied, not only weather, climate, and basically environments of any country on Earth. I mean, we've got mountains, we've got desert, we've got with Alaska, you've got frozen tundra, you've got rainforests in Hawaii and in Puerto Rico. I mean, you've got everything. You've got temperate zones. You've got
Humidity and no humidity.
You've got it all. You've got it all right here in the good old U.S.
What does that have to do with two big oceans on each side?
Well, that helps. I mean, but you've got a lot of our topography and our geography built in. You've got the oceans. You've got currents. You know, you've got the Gulf Stream. You know, there's so many.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, just think of California. Think of your state.
Yeah. Ooh.
You've got desert. You've got beach. You've got mountains. You've got snow. In one state.
You can ski and swim in the same day.
I mean, it's crazy.
More moments with Al Roker, one of my favorite people, right after this.
You'd almost have to invent California if it wasn't.
God damn it, you're right.
Yeah!
Al Roker, don't forget Coast Guard Alaska on the Weather Channel. The new season premieres February 23rd in its 4th year.
Oh, may I also point out, we've got another interesting special for them. March 15th at 9 o'clock. It's Weather of Biblical Proportions. We look at the Bible and look at the weather phenomenon that's documented in the Bible, and we take it to different scientists and say, what could have happened to explain this?
Like?
And the flood, the great flood, Noah's flood, Noah and the ark. And let's look at present day and things that have happened, weather of biblical proportions, how they relate. And it's fascinating. I mean, it really is.
Could the Red Sea split?
Yes, it could, because of winds, because of strong winds.
You're amazing, Al Roker. Neck of the Woods, how did that start?
You know, when I started filling in for Willard Scott, like in 1985, when you tossed to the local station, I was saying different things. And Steve Friedman, the executive producer at the time,
well.
said, listen, you got to say the same thing because the stations don't know when to cut away. You're throwing them off. So you got to come up with something. And my grandfather used to say, hey, grandson, what's going on in your neck of the woods? And so it's kind of a tribute to my granddad, you know. So I say this, you know.
Funny where it came from, neck of the woods.
Yeah, it's supposedly depending on like there's in land masses there a little bit of a crook and a neck. I don't know.
Are you very competitive with the other news shows in the morning?
You know, when you say competitive, you mean do I?
With the other forecasters?
No, you know, listen. CBS got rid of. They don't even do weather, and I've known
they don't do weather.
They don't do weather. I
never see them.
Yeah. You know, Charlie Rose and
why would they not do weather?
They're the serious newscast. So
So weather isn't serious?
Yeah. Well, they toss to the local station. Their feeling is people only care about their local weather. So you know, which is hey.
Your wife, Deborah
yes.
Roberts, she's on a competitive.
She's
network.
on ABC. There are some days when she's on Good Morning America and I'm on the Today Show. So I make my children watch Fox.
Weather is an icebreaker in conversations.
It
too,
is.
Right? If you got nothing to say, well...
How about that weather? How about that weather? How about that? Listen, I love talking about the weather. The only problem I have is in my own home, I will come home and my wife will say, you know, they say it's supposed to be this. I said, I'm they. Why are you quoting somebody else? I'm they. Don't tell me about they. Tell me about me. Why are you watching they? Watch me.
Do you get nervous flying in bad weather?
Not really. I mean, listen, I think no more than anybody else.
Turbulence
doesn't bother me that much. I mean, look, if you know things are flying, I've only been I can count on one hand in all this time I've been traveling where I've had bad weather. There was one flight, a Delta shuttle. I was coming back from Washington, D.C. We actually had St. Elmo's fire in the plane. It was the wildest. I was flying with Mary Alice Williams.
I remember her well.
And it was a horrendous lightning storm going on, and we're thinking that was one of the times. And all of a sudden, you could smell this ozone, and all of a sudden, there's this kind of bluish ball that floats down the aisle, and nobody says anything. I mean, it just kind of dissipates, and we're all like. And nobody said a word for the rest of the flight.
On a 40-minute flight.
Yeah.
Some questions from social media.
Hello, social media.
Charles Adrian on Facebook. What's your favorite weather app?
The Weather Channel app.
I think of that.
Yeah.
Mr. Whiteman on Twitter. How does one prep for a weather report? What's going on behind the scenes?
Well, I'm very blessed. I've got a terrific meteorologist who works with me on the Weather Channel and on the Today Show. My Weather Channel meteorologist is a young woman named Dina, and my guy at the Today Show is a guy named Don. I've worked with like 25 years. We go through everything. We go through with the internet. It's great. You can almost, it's like you're there, but I'm at home having just taken a shower. And you go through the maps, you go through what you're talking about, and we spend about 45 minutes on the phone. Okay, we're going to do this. Let's do this. What do you think about this? And then the maps, he designs the maps, and then I hit the ground running.
Bryson Knox on Facebook. What motivated you to lose all that weight?
My dad had stopped smoking 35 years earlier. This was 14 years ago. But he developed lung cancer. It was virulent, and very quickly we knew nothing was going to help him. And so he was at Sloan Kettering. So every morning before the show, I would stop in to see him. And this one morning, the fact that he was not going to make it kind of hit me. And he said, listen, everything's okay. It's going to be okay. The only thing I'm worried about is you. He goes, we have gone around the horn about your weight, since I can remember. I'm not going to be here to help raise my grandchildren. You've got to swear to God to me you're going to lose weight. I want you to swear to God to me you're going to lose weight. Okay, I promise. No, I swear to God. And so I said, I swear to God I'm going to lose weight. He goes, good. Okay. I'll see you this afternoon. I went and came back, and at that point the cancer had reached his brain. He couldn't talk. And 2 weeks later, he was gone. So about 3 months afterwards, I realized, I said, I got to keep this promise. And I had done everything, and finally decided, I'm going to do a gastric bypass. This is, I think, the last resort for me. And that's what I did.
How many pounds did that take off?
I took off 140 pounds. And I thought I had it licked. 5 years later, my mom got sick. She was at North Shore, Long Island Jewish. So I was driving almost an hour a day, every day, one way. And I kind of fell back into my old habits. I was eating in the car. I was eating badly. I wasn't working out. And 3 months later, I gained 40 pounds. And then my mom passed. I said, I can't do this again. So a buddy of mine, a friend of mine from Chicago, John Harris, had done a cleanse. I saw him. He looked fantastic. I did a cleanse. I started working out, started running, started biking, and I lost the weight. And over the last 5 years, I've lost even more. I bottomed out at about 200. Now I'm like 185.
What's a cleanse?
It's like a juice kind of fast kind of thing. You shakes, the liquid protein kind of stuff. You don't eat. You basically don't. Well, you do eat. You have maybe one meal a day.
And finally, what's happening in this neck of the woods?
Everything's good. It's a beautiful blue sky day. I'm sitting here in the Trump building. I'm talking to Larry King. Life is good.
Life's
Couple
good.
of kids from New York City.
Hey,
not too
what
bad.
Are we going to make of ourselves?
Not too bad.
Hey, don't forget Coast Guard Alaska premieres 4th season February 23rd. Thanks, Al.
Thank you, Larry.
See you on Twitter at King's Things.